I'm going to have to do this no matter if I'm scared, if I don't want to.
And that fear, because of the rejection that comes with it, is why we find ourselves not moving forward. Those three things is where I invest in 6 to 8 hours a day. Having a company like MIT, myself, being in the corner allows us the opportunity to make a dramatic impact in people's lives.
Welcome back to the Millionaire Coach Podcast, where we're talking real estate, life, and making millionaires. We are your co-hosts, Lisette Sabrina and
Robert Villanueva.
Just a little bit about us. So I've been in the industry, real estate industry, for about 6 years, and I get the opportunity to work alongside my life partner and business partner with Robert. And I sell real estate here in the Central Valley, Central California. And so, Robert, you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself really quick?
Yeah, the quick rundown. Been in the business since 1999 for the last 26 years. My first year in the business, I had the good fortune of selling 42 homes. Second year, I sold 86 homes. Third year, I sold 101. My best year ever was 156 units, $1.4 million in commissions generated. In that 26-year window, I've had the good fortune of selling over 2,500 homes, over $1 billion in sales volume. But what I'm most excited about is the second half of my career. I've been a professionally paid coach since 2010. And in that window, I've had the good fortune of helping 26 people get into that millionaire 7-figure status.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's such a resume. So I just want to, pinpoint anyone can, but not everyone will.
Yeah.
And I think the main difference is a key point and the mindset.
Yeah.
And so let's dive into the mindset of a millionaire and developing that mindset and into achieving those amazing accomplishments.
Sure.
So to you, with our first question, what does a millionaire mindset mean to you?
Well, in the industry, there's so much complacency that takes place. There's a lot of, we have this image business. And the image business, going back to some of the other things we've talked about before, is we have people in the industry making $100,000, living this $150,000 lifestyle, and constantly being in this broke status. So internally, they're broke, but externally, they're showing off this, this image that unfortunately they're not. It's really the elite of the elite that gets that millionaire mindset. That's where we have a lot of clarity as to what we're wanting to accomplish. It's no longer about impressing the Joneses. Now it's putting ourselves in a position where people can not only reach high levels of success, as whether it's income, but most importantly, building that wealth. And that's where we start to build that millionaire mindset.
So really redefining what that means for you. And I know you've mentioned this before, but living below your means also, so that you could develop that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is mindset more important than skill, or do they work together?
They work hand in hand. I guess the best way I describe the mindset, it's kind of like the tires to our car. I know it's kind of a silly example, but we don't pay attention to it until those tires go flat, right? So, and then that's when we start throwing everything at it. We go into listening to all this motivational, inspirational, watching all kinds of videos, YouTubes, listening to all this other stuff. And unfortunately, it ends up being in short spurts. But you also have to have that mindset that continues to create, the next level mindset instead of just being complacent. Now, where skills tie in is when you get both of them going at the exact same time, the skills and the mindset. It's kind of like, putting rocket fuel in your car where everything just goes at a way faster pace because now you know what you want and now you're doing it with skill.
Yeah, I love that. So you're just building a rocket ship of a car.
Basically. Yeah.
Putting skills and your mindset together.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Now, why do most agents misunderstand what mindset really is?
Because it's this quick fix. We're in this microwave mindset type of mentality where, we want to lose weight. take that pill. We want to look a certain way, we go get a surgery. We're always in this position where we're wanting to get the quickest possible solution to whatever it is that we're wanting to accomplish. So we have to look at it from a long-term perspective. I mean, nobody becomes a millionaire or a billionaire in a sense overnight unless you win the lottery. And we already know that 90% of those end up failing anyways. Yeah. So it's building this stronger mindset, taking you from a position where you're currently at and then getting to that next level, getting to the 100, the 250, the 500, the million, and then just continuing to build from there, and not just doing it for a year or two, it's doing it for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just making that true dedication that it's not just for that short while, this is a lifelong commitment to yourself and building yourself. Now, what is the difference between positive thinking and a real mindset?
It's the intent. Yeah, it really boils down to intent. I mean, we can listen to positive things, which is, of course, important. It's, of course, better than listening to negative things. But the intent behind growing it, are you just simply reading a book to read a book, or are you reading a book with the expectation to study it, to extract information, to apply the information, which is, of course, more important. So that's really where it starts to differentiate.
Now, I know, let me just break down. So the question, because it does talk about positive thinking. Mm-hmm. Now, there's the difference between the positive thinking as far as, this will work out. This is going to all work out for me. Mm-hmm. And you're positively putting that into the world.
Right.
And then also just that constructive side of what you're saying is you're making it more intentional, and putting those positive things in your life. That way you are thinking in that way.
Right.
Can someone succeed without the right mindset?
I mean, I guess in theory you can, but if you're not having the right mindset, are you going to enjoy it? Because there are some people that are naturally gifted. They have the connections, they have the parents, the people that they surround themselves with, and look at the people that are on TV as an example. They're in the limelight. So they may not necessarily have the strongest mindset, but because they have the right circle, they just naturally fall into that. So there are going to be some exceptions, but overall, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What beliefs do all millionaire agents share?
Clarity. And what I mean by clarity is that they know with what they want to accomplish. The one commonality of the 26 agents that I had the good fortune of helping getting into that status, they knew what they wanted to accomplish. I can share the 26 agents, the 26 millionaires, but what I don't frequently share are the opposite. The ones that, sign up for coaching, don't do anything, don't accomplish anything. And in some cases, even their business goes backwards because now they're doing things different and they're not excelling. And with those people, they're not clear a large percentage of the time. So what I've identified is there's two different types of salespeople. There's salesperson A, who's very clear as to what they want, and then salesperson B, which is the person that I don't know. I just want to be successful. Well, what does success mean to you? Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to make more money. Okay, well, how much money do you want to earn? Well, I don't know. I just want more. When they don't have that clarity, you don't know what you're shooting for. So you have to have that clarity. Yeah.
One thing that I enjoy that we do is we do meet with our team, our agents, right. And at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the time that they join with us and or we're diving into their numbers. What do we want their business to look like?
Yep.
And I know you do this for your clients as well.
Yep.
And I think it's so important because we have to know where you are deciding where you want to go and where you want to be at. And that does develop that clarity for maybe a newer agent who hasn't really, thought about those things yet. But also even for that advanced agent, maybe they haven't put a business plan in place before, and now they're seeing what that could look like. And with that comes a lot of clarity, because I know that you dive into, well, great, you're making more income, but what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your family?
Right.
How does that elevate your lifestyle? And so it dives into the things that matter the most in a sales agent's career, because this isn't an easy career. It's very beneficial in the long term, of course. That way you do see that bigger picture. So I love that we do that for our team. I love that that you do that for your clients. I think it's so important.
Yeah, the one thing, let me add to that, because there's, it's kind of scary sometimes, because there's times where I'm working with somebody and they're hiring a coach for the first time. They've been in the business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and good for them on taking that leap of faith. But I go into, breaking down some of their numbers. What is it that you want to accomplish? What's your business plan look like? And they go, I have no clue what I did last year. Okay, well, what do you want to do this year? I'm really not certain. I know I want to double my business. Well, if you don't know how much business you did last year, what are you doubling? Do you even know what you're going after? Yeah. And not to, make fun of or make light of those agents, but it's hard to, put in the efforts, every single day if you have no clue what you're going after. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just so important. I mean, one of my favorite things to do at the beginning of the year is draw up a vision board and really get focused on the goal.
Right.
And so every year those goals might change slightly, but they're in front of me. And so they're there, they're clear. I know exactly the Tesla that I want. I know exactly the color that I want. And so it's just more of a matter of, okay, let's get the ducks aligned and that way we can make it happen. So perfect. So now what is the first mindset shift an agent needs to make?
This was given to me, and I don't know. You definitely want to give credit to who brought this to me, but the question was asked. What is it that you want in life? So this wasn't asked to me. This was just in general, and I want success. Okay, well, what does success mean to you? Well, success means to make a lot of money. Okay, but what is that money going to do for you? Well, I guess live a better life. Okay, well, what kind of life do you want to live? So anyways, the point of the purpose of the questioning was getting down to the root of it. And a lot of times people want to say things along the line of, I want another house, I want a car, so on and so forth. Now, it got down to the finite, to where, as an example, a person says, well, I want to make $100,000. Okay, cool, awesome. Well, what if you went to the doctor and the doctor said you only have 1 year to live? Would that making $100,000 still be the most important goal that you have in your life? Well, probably not. Well, what would it be? What would that be? What if you set that goal, whatever it is to be or to do, and then all of a sudden they say, you know what, it's not a year, it's only 90 days. Would those goals be the same? And it really gave me a different perspective, because when that was given to me, and again, I don't even remember who gave this to me, it just changed, so many different things. I sat there the first time, I said, well, I want to make $1 million. Okay, well, what's that going to do for you? Well, yeah, I'm just going to live a better life. Well, what if you only had a year left to live? Would it still be the same? Well, I guess not. It would probably be something different. I might, travel. I might spend more time with family. I might want to, whatever that was. But it definitely was a completely different response. And that's being clear as day. And then just kind of going from there. Obviously, it's a little bit of a dark of a response, but it does. It clearly defines whether, the first thing that comes out of your mouth, or is it something that is genuine? And that's the difference.
Yeah, and I would like to go into one of the stories that you've shared before, and maybe not now, but maybe we'll go into it, is about the agent that you used to work with, that you've helped her develop her goal as far as purchasing her dream house.
Oh, yeah.
And she put it as her vision, her vision board.
Right.
We can dive into it in a little bit, or if you want to do that now.
Yeah, let's do it now. So I'll leave this person nameless because I don't have their permission to, in a sense, share their, personalized story. Yeah. But there's this agent that came in, to my brokerage, and agent was doing, pretty well, making $85,000, $100,000 a year, was in the business for, I don't know, probably about a good 18 years, and just kept doing, 10 deals, 11 deals, 9 deals, 12 deals, 80,000, 100,000, 90,000, so on and so forth. And this person came to me and said, you know what, I'd like to come work for your brokerage because I know that you can make, changes in people's lives. And I want to drastically change my business model. I'm tired of doing the same old business year after year after year after year. And I said, well, what does that look like for you? Well, this person said, that they want to be able to make at least $500,000, $500,000 a year. I said, well, that's basically almost, quintupling your income. So we broke down, what is it that you want? What do you want to accomplish? So on and so forth. And we started to identify some goals that she was wanting to go after. And in one of those goals was she wanted to get a bigger house. I'm like, okay, perfect. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go into the MLS. I want you to do some window shopping, find a home that actually is with what you want for you and your family. She goes through, finds a home that was currently on the market at the moment, was being offered for sale, and she printed it, put it on her vision board, put it on her computer, so on and so forth. Anyways, fast forward, it's probably about 6 months later, she calls me up all super excited saying, hey, guess what, Robert? I set an appointment with an expired seller. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. I said, well, tell me more. She goes, well, you're not going to believe it, but you know the home that I have on my computer? I said, yeah. Well, I set an appointment with that owner. And I said, well, okay, cool, awesome. We'll go out there, go do the appointment, and go take that listing. Sure enough, she goes out there, gets the, goes on the appointment, signs the listing, calls me up and says, you know what, guess what, Robert, I took the listing. I'm like, awesome, good job. She goes, but I'm thinking about buying this house. And I always get a little choked up when I share this story. Kid you not, she ended up buying the house that was on her computer screen. So it's super cool because, 6 months later, her business was not really quite taking off. But now because she took, that leap of faith, she found herself generating more income, more business. What was her dream home ended up becoming literally the place that she called her residence, 6 to 9 months later. Yeah. So it's one of my favorite, stories about, setting goals, having the right mindset. So I'm super proud of what she was able to accomplish. And of course, her family gets the benefit of that.
Yeah. And I agree. I love that story because it does prove that when you have that goal so engraved in your mind that that's what I want, that's what I'm going to go get. And so she had that front and center. Yeah. And I love that because it does prove that that's even, just focusing on what your goal is.
Right.
And she put herself in that space. So that's perfect. Okay. So now going into, why do most agents think too small?
Well, I think complacency is the first thing, but the other part too is that there is, we all know fear of failure, but not a lot of us are aware of the fear of success. So for me, as an example, I'll use myself, great parents, loving parents, nothing against my parents. However, they were constantly telling me, I think too big. I got my head in the clouds, so on and so forth. And they come from a loving place. They just want to make sure that I wasn't, in a sense, disappointed. So I would dummy down some of those dreams. And people do that quite commonly. So they find themselves in this state of somewhat complacency, or if I just get to right here, if I get my bills paid, if I get to making 6 figures, I can brag about that. And then they hit that plateau and they just become complacent. So the thinking smaller is a safe place. Thinking bigger comes with going back to the fear of success, because with the fear of success comes responsibilities. I mean, think about being in a position, where 1 year you're making $100,000 and then 2-3 years later, now you're making 7 figures. Now you're no longer driving the $40,000-$50,000 car. Now you're driving the $150,000 car. You're no longer wearing the $1,000 watch. You're not wearing the $50,000 watch. So people start to look at you a little bit different. And there is so much envy that gets built in this window. So as the old saying goes, success is kind of rarefied air, and it gets a little lonely up there because you start to really separate the people that are, your cheerleaders, and then the people that are, not so much. So getting to just enough is why people, have a tendency of thinking a little bit smaller versus just simply thinking bigger.
Yeah. Well, I come from probably the smallest town. Oh, you kind of compared it to one of your smaller towns. So I come from a town called Porterville, and it's a little smaller. It's now growing.
Yeah.
How many people do we have in town now?
I think it's like 60,000, 70,000. Yeah.
So it's growing, but with it being such a small town, I mean, for me to think bigger, I had to go out and I had to find people around me who thought bigger so that I could think bigger. And I somehow didn't really see that around me too much. Coming from my family, it was just not in my circle.
Yeah.
So when I did expose myself to different conversations, different opportunities, it just became a lot brighter.
Yeah.
So I do think with that does have an effect on your mindset as well, because once you start having bigger conversations, okay, now people are talking about making $1 million. I thought, wow, that's, I didn't think that was quite attainable.
Yeah.
But now you're talking with millionaires and how they're multiplying this, they're buying this, and they're, doing amazing things.
Yeah.
And at that moment, it's definitely a learning curve. If you're coming from at a point where I was at that, at that point. Yeah. So now I do think there is that threshold is where you do meet people and having those big conversations that you can think bigger.
Yeah. Let me add to that, because it is important that, I always like to share a little bit of my background, because it's always fun when I post something and then somebody says, no way, that's not even possible. No way were you ever this type of a person. But when I was 13, 14, and 15, pretty much my early teen years, I was a gangster. And it's funny because when I say that, and even as I sit there and say that, people say, yeah, right. No, yeah. I mean, my nickname was Ed Loco, which means the crazy one. And I had to live up to that name. However, I started losing friends. My best friend was murdered when I was just about, not 16, I was 15, because I had my daughter, at that age. And I was, of course, up to no good. My idea of thinking big was buying the Impala, being with my homies and, just kind of having that, in a sense, lifestyle. And it didn't take too long. I mean, I'm probably less than a decade removed. I remember I made my first 7 figures when I was 25 years old. And it started becoming very, it's a lot different mentality. And we've had dinners where literally everybody at the table is making 7 figures or more. And I'm sitting there sometimes at awe. And, I'm now approaching almost 50. And I still, it's hard to say that. But yeah, I sit there and on. I'm sitting there like, I love the fact that my friend's making 1.2. This was making 1.7. This dude's making 2.3. She's making 3 million. And I love being in that environment because, growing up, I didn't know a single person that made $100,000, let alone making 7 figures. And now here I am, of course, that's not from a place to brag, but I love the opportunity that I can call those people friends. I can pick up the phone. We can visit them, So it's a completely different circle and a completely different mentality. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking to our friends, it gives us the opportunity. We can sit there and say, hey, I just bought a new house. Awesome. It comes from a place of appreciation, like we're proud of them. Versus if I go through and I tell one of my homies, if you want to call it, it comes with this enviousness. So that goes back to the thinking smaller versus thinking bigger, because it does come with those responsibilities.
Yeah, that's a big point right there. Mm-hmm. Now, how does identity impact production?
And it could be in a good and a bad way. I mean, like, for example, myself, the coaching company, MIT Millionaires in Training, I named it that because that's the very first thing I wanted to make sure people identified with, is wanting to be not just a good agent or great agent, but being a uberly successful agent. So it can, if you have it with the right intent, but it can also be the other way around where, I can be a statistic, 71% of the realtors last year didn't do a single deal, and I identify with my friends who didn't. So the identity portion of that is, who do you want to be? and go in that direction, because there is a lot of that self-talk that we've talked about before, where there is the negative self-talk of, I'm always making mistakes. I always do this. I suck. I have all of those negative things. That's part of the identity. We start labeling and creating those identities of ourselves. So we have to be really careful with what comes out of our mouth and what we think about, what happens between our ears, and which is, what I love most about our relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we work on that every day.
Every day.
And I mean, even prior to meeting you, I had already put in this whole YouTube selection of all of my positive affirmation videos, my meditation videos, because I do want to work on all of that. I had audiobooks, and you did too. So you had, so I think that's why we aligned a lot on that stuff too.
Yeah.
Because it's always just in the place of growth, and that's really important for me and a partner, a life partner and business partner.
Yeah.
And it's just being in a state of growth. We have to grow.
Well, we do that together, and that's what makes it even more enjoyable, because sometimes I get it, again, coaching, certain individuals, they don't have that environment at home, and they have to work on it on themselves. They have to, whether it's the wife that the husband isn't supporting them in their business, or the other way around, where the husband is really trying to get his business off the ground, and the wife's like, when are you coming home? It makes a great alignment, when you do have that partnership. But if you don't, we still got to work on it. We got to work on it on our own, and that's the thing that we spend the most amount of time with ourselves. And we want to be in a position where we're constantly uplifting, working on ourselves, and that is part of that mindset.
Yeah. And I remember mentioning something similar to you, we are going to be with ourselves for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
There's no hiding from ourselves.
Right.
And so we truly have to become friends and best friends at that with ourselves and know ourselves. So just constantly feeding it positive things and talking to ourselves as if we are our best friend. So if we have we have to see what we're actually saying. Is that something you would say to a best friend or a good friend? Whatever you're saying to yourself, is it a positive or is it a negative? And if it's not so positive, well, then why are you saying it to yourself? You wouldn't say that to a best friend or a good friend, somebody that you care for. So just being very aware of the words is huge.
It is.
Okay, so now let's go into some limiting beliefs. I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but now let's go into a little bit further. So what are the most common limiting beliefs agents have?
That they can't do it. And especially in our industry, I'll use the plank example when, I'm speaking to audiences. The plank example comes out of a book, and I want to give credit to the book. So I'm going to, but I don't remember who the author was.
We give credit somewhere.
Yeah, so whoever it is, let me know. I want to make sure I give them credits, because this isn't a Robertism. But there is a little bit of a spin that Robert adds to it. So the first thing is the first example. And in that first example, I'll ask the audience, if I challenged you to cross a plank that is 3 feet wide from one side of the street to the other side of the street, and all you do, just cross that plank. No cars, no nothing. Just cross that 3-foot plank off the ground. Okay. And it's 3 feet wide. How many of you would take that bet? And usually 90, 95, and almost always the case, 100% of the audience raises their hand. Right. Awesome. The second example is, okay, now I'm going to make a little bit of a twist to that challenge. And that second challenge, it's going to be the exact same plank, 3 feet wide. Same distance, but it's no longer 3 feet off the ground. Now it's 100 stories in the air. How many of you would take that bet to cross that plank? I think in the last 15 years, I've had 2 people, and I don't even know if they understood the question, but they said, okay, I would. So, but 99.999% of the people will say, no, absolutely not. And well, why wouldn't you? Well, you wouldn't, because our lives are worth way more than $100 to take that type of a risk. Mm-hmm. Now, in that third example, again, forgive me because it comes straight out of the book. Now, if I challenge you on a third example to cross a plank from one side of the street 3 feet wide, same exact as the second scenario. However, this time in that other building is your most prized possession or your loved ones. Think of your significant other, your children, your parents, whoever that may be, is in the other building. And now that building is on fire. Nobody can come up. Nobody can save them. Only you can save them. You got to cross that plank, go get those people you love or the prized possession and bring them over. How many of you would now cross that plank? And again, now it's 100% again. Now, what are the three different examples? This is the Robert-ism in our industry. And the first example is a safe bet. Okay, if I cross this plank, I'll make $100. Mm-hmm. If I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I get paid. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I get paid. That's a job. In the second example is where a lot of salespeople find themselves, especially in the commission-specific industry. Now, crossing that plank for $100, 100 stories in the air, I don't know if it's worth the risk. And with what we do in real estate in specific, whether it's knocking on doors, picking up the phone, calling people at random, open houses, whatever it is, investing money in your business, it's scary. It's scary because there is no, reward at the end, at least nothing guaranteed. There could be if we do that. But in the third example is now having goals, having something in specific. This is the clarity that I was talking about in specific earlier. When you know with what it is that you want, which is that prized possession, your loved one, your significant other. I mean, if you were in the building on the other side, I wouldn't even think twice. I'm crossing that plank and I'm saving you. And that's having clarity. That's know with what we want. And unfortunately, that's the rarefiedness of with what we do in our industry because that is the goals that we want. And when I talk about goals, it's got to be clear. It can't just be a new house. It's got to be how many bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, what's the lot size? Does it have a pool, not have a pool, single story, 2-story, ranch home, whatever it is, where is it located? It's got to be very, very specific, not just a new home. So the more of those, whether it's a car, a house, a boat, a trip, running a marathon, reading X amount of books, having a spiritual relationship, personal relationship, business goals, having an assistant, all of these different things, when you have them very, very clear, that's when we move forward. And the reason I share that story with everybody is because you have to be able to identify where you're at. It's easy to, win the $100 at the first example, but it's way harder in that second example. And that's where probably 95% of most salespeople find themselves is in that window where they're scared. They don't know. Is it enough risk for that reward?
Yeah.
Or the other way around, enough reward for that risk.
I love that you mentioned that because we're going to go into a little bit further as far as the fear. Yeah. And I mean, for the third example that you mentioned, they had a clear goal. Yeah. And so they had no fear, right? That's like, I don't care. I don't care. Right. Like, I'm going to have to do this no matter if I'm scared, if I don't want to. Like, there's a clear motivation. And going into it further, as far as why do agents fear rejection? Because that's it's just part of our industry. Sure. Is rejection. Yeah. And so why do agents fear rejection so much? Because
they don't have that clearly defined goals. Now, as an example, if somebody knocked on 100 doors, right? And I just said, go knock on 100 doors, one of my clients. Okay. Well, what's the reward? Well, I don't know. Maybe you get a deal. Maybe you get a listing. Maybe you get a buyer. Okay, they go out there. They knock on 100 doors, and 2, 3, 5 people are rude. Another 2, 3, 5 people slam the door in their face. Maybe there's a dog, so on and so forth. At the end of that 100-door experience, they're going to say, I don't know if that was really worth it. But what if I changed the dynamics of that? And the dynamics of that is I said, you go knock on 100 doors. And when you're done knocking on those 100 doors, it's going to get you a commission of $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000. And all you got to do is just go knock on 100 doors. Now the question is, how many of you would do that? In the first example, most people would be like, well, probably not. I'm not a door knocker. I don't really like to do things like that. That's not with what I do. That's not how I run my business. I might get 5, 10, or 15 people that'll raise their hand and say, sure, I'll go do it. But in the second example, if I say you are guaranteed to get $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 commission when you're done knocking the 100 doors, how many of you would now raise your hand? So in that's the clarity of it. The problem, though, is that most people don't have that certainty. And then with that rejection that comes along the process, who cares? If I know that I'm going to knock on 100 doors and I have $20,000 on that one, the 100th door waiting for me, I don't care if I get rejected, cussed out, door slammed, rejected, door slammed, rejected, door slammed. When I get to that 100, I'm like, yes, I got a $20,000 commission check. Mm-hmm. But we get so scared, and most people fear is the unknown. And that unknown is where a lot of that fear comes into play. And that fear, because of the rejection that comes with it, is why we find ourselves not moving forward.
Yeah. I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge, that's just with sales agents.
Right.
We never are guaranteed. Mm-hmm. We don't have control over the guarantee of that. Mm-hmm. We only have control of the efforts. And the motivation behind that is our choice, mm-hmm. ultimately, mm-hmm. Because of our goals and the goals that we set in place.
Yeah. There is a way, though, to build your business where it is a little bit more predictable. I'm using myself as an example. So tracking my numbers, how many conversations I had throughout the day, how many doors I knocked on. I tracked everything. And I learned this early on, from my mentors. And as I continued to move forward, I started to realize that I would get a paycheck, I'd get a commission every 500 or so conversations. Awesome. So if I have 500 conversations, on average, of course, on every 500 conversations, I'd get a commission. How do I take that 500 and turn it to 400? How do I take the 400, 300, down to 200? Well, my best year ever was 86 conversations. So I started telling myself, I want a commission check every single day. How do I do this? So I said, okay, I know that every 86 on average conversations I'd have, I would get a commission check. So in order for me to get a commission check, that year was to do at least 200 deals. In order for me to get a commission check every single day, I knew I had to have at least 86 conversations. So I made the decision that I started to have 100 conversations every single day. And I'm proud of the fact that I did that 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. There's not too many people, I don't really know of anybody that actually has done that, but 100 conversations every single day for two years in a row. And sure enough, that year, sure, it's a little bit of a while ago, 2007. In that year, did 150, I want to say it was 154 deals. Sorry, the other way around, 148 deals in 154 days. Well, in 2007, as most people may know, that's where the depression hit. That's where the market just completely collapsed. And I had done that in 3/4 of the year. The last 3 months of that year, just the market had just fallen flat on its face. But I knew what I wanted to accomplish. So there is a version of creating a predictable sort of business in our industry and duplicatable. And how do you do that? Well, you track your numbers. You got to know where your source is, where you get business from. How can I get X amount of deals as I did last year and then be able to get the same or more this year? Ideally, it's going to be based on skill or it's going to be based on effort.
Yeah. And I'm just imagining you because this was a time also because there was no Vulcan. Am I right? Am I wrong? There was no dialers. There was no nothing.
No dialers.
But you were talking to 100 people a day.
Yeah.
Challenge for the audience. Have you talked to 100 people a day? Or can you think about that? So, and I mean, having 100 conversations a day, that's dedication, and obviously those efforts showed up in your results. But to get so strategic and so intentional about tracking the numbers, how many conversations, because that could be different for everybody. I mean, starting out as a newer agent might take you a lot more, right? I mean, versus somebody who has been in the industry a little longer, maybe they've been a little bit more skilled, maybe they need a little bit more skills. So really just getting very strategic on that. And that's super impressive.
Yeah, well, it's the tracking of the numbers and it's going to happen over a period of time. From a coach's perspective, if somebody tracks their numbers over the course of 90 days, I can kind of paint a little bit of a picture. Over 180 days, that picture gets a little bit clearer because in that, as an example, 180 days, half a year, I can now see, okay, that person did 10 deals as an example in the 180 days. And of the 10 deals, 5 of them came from their database, 2 of them came from this source, 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here. Can we duplicate that? Can we replicate that? And in some cases, you possibly can if you take the right strategies.
Yeah. Now, let's go into, I know we've been talking a little bit about motivation, and there goes also another hand in hand with discipline. So discipline versus motivation, I would say. Why, well, a question for you is, why is motivation overrated?
It's good and it's not good. And the question is asked, why is it overrated? Because in most cases, motivation is temporary. And it's just for that moment. The discipline, there's a saying that I followed for a long period of time, is that the most successful people do it even on the days that they don't want to. And that's where I want. Those are the days where I wouldn't want to, go and have 100 conversations. I didn't want to go and door knock. It was 110 degrees, in Fontana, the area that I used to service, and it was hot. So, and my people remember this, I would take 3 shirts. It sounds kind of gross, but I would take a door knocking shirt, because by the time I'm done, that shirt is like drenched. And then there'd be the next shirt, which would be going back to the office. And then sometimes it would be the presentation shirt, because it's a freaking hot day. So just being in a position where if I focused on solely the motivation, it might have just got me up for the morning. But it's the discipline that continues to move us forward. Instead of the word motivation, what I want people to think about is, inspiration. And the difference between motivation and inspiration, motivation is temporary. We listen to motivational videos, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's good. It gets us out of bed. It gets us, moving in a forward direction. It puts the right mindset instead of sitting there thinking about the negativism that the world sometimes offers. We're in the right state of mind, but it is still temporary. The discipline is where the consistency shows up. And the discipline is where, those days, even when we don't want to do it, we still end up doing it like the way we're supposed to. So discipline is way superior any given day than motivation.
So going into, how does somebody, if they're not too, they're getting into this, what does that look like? So how do you build discipline from scratch?
Oh, yeah.
Ground up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's use a realtor as an example. There's 5 key things that a realtor should be doing every single day. The first thing is working on their skills. We have a language, and that language is known as the language of sales. Are you working towards it? Second thing is conversations, prospecting, lead generation, whatever you want to call it. You got to be in conversations all day. That's the second thing. The third thing is the lead follow-up. As we generate those leads, we're going to need to follow up on them, because 70, 80, if not 90% of our business is going to come from that lead follow-up. I know a lot of agents that generate tons and tons of leads, but they do so poor at lead follow-up. Who cares? That fourth one is what we get paid to do, and that's to negotiate contracts. The fifth one is going on appointments. However, negotiating contracts and going on appointments, those are more result-oriented. So in the first 3, skills, lead generation, and lead follow-up, that should be about 60, if not preferably 80% of our days. And going back to the contacts, how in the world did that dude make 100 contacts? Well, literally those 3 things is where I invested 6 to 8 hours a day.
Going into, I think you just broke it down. You just broke it down as far as what needs to go throughout your day.
Yep.
So that is what top agents focus on. Now, how do top producers make decisions differently?
Number 1 is faster. That's it. Just making decisions faster. But there is a little bit of strategy behind it. And the strategy behind it is either having a coach, having a mentor, having somebody to look into, having the opportunity to bounce an idea off. And if you don't, I would encourage you to look for somebody. I mean, obviously, my coaching platform is a great place to start. But if you're just not in that financial position, that's okay. Look for somebody. Who are you aspiring to be like, and put yourself in that position. Going back to the first thing, making decisions faster. This is where a large percentage of just society, not salespeople, not realtors, just society in general, just make a poor approach on, because there is the old gut feeling, if you want to call it that. Is it going to be wrong? Sure, absolutely. But more often than not, yeah, it's going to be right. And as I tell my clients, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. But what I want you to do is I want you to fail. I want you to fail fast, but I want you to fail forward. And that's where you get the opportunity to make, better decisions, and that puts you where you're making decisions faster. And you just continue to just build that momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes hand in hand with your mindset, because now you're so clear on your goals. You're clear, you're just feeding your mindset on a daily. And then you're also making those decisions because they're so clear. So now you're moving faster. You have somebody guiding you. You have somebody, obviously, like you, who's already been there, done that. You know what to expect and how to lead somebody to those successes. So I will end it with asking you one more question. What would you say to an agent who feels stuck right now?
You got to go find with what you want. You got to find that inspiration, not motivation. What inspires you? And sometimes it's going to take a day or two, a month or two to figure it out. And I don't know what that is. You'll have to figure that out. Now, as far as, because that's a vague response, let me get more detailed. There's 3 very specific areas that I would want someone to look into. Number 1 is looking at your business goals. What is it that you want to, achieve? Your material goals. This is the stuff that we buy: cars, house, boats, trips, so on and so forth. Third one is personal goals. Personal goals are things that we earn. You can't buy it. So what are things that you earn? Maybe a spiritual relationship, maybe a personal relationship, running a marathon, reading books, whatever those things may be, and identifying that. I have all of my clients go through that exercise and do the same goals for 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, and heck, do the extra credit for 10 years. And as they go through that, they put all of these goals down. I ask of them, what are your top 3 goals? And now we have something to work towards. Because if you're relying on what's between your ears and you're doing this every day, well, you're already wired, however old you are, whether you're 20, 25, 30, 40, or 50, or 60, or whatever years of age you are, you're used to having the exact same mentality. And one video, one conversation is not going to change it. You have to figure out what it's going to take to get there, whatever that goal may be. Taking a trip to Hawaii, buying a house, buying a car. What do you have to do to get there? Now, ideally, you put the sacrifices in so that you can accomplish whatever that goal is.
Yeah. Love that. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up. Now, this episode was speaking solely on the mindset of a millionaire, so the millionaire mindset. Now, we have another video coming up, and we're going to talk about database and really breaking down the importance of a database and how to get your business going from that database. So we're going to end it here, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us again on this Millionaire Coach Podcast with your co-hosts, Lisette Sabrina and
Robert Villanueva,
where we're talking real estate, life, and making millionaires. We'll see you on the next one.